Welcome to our video podcast of business success in a virtual world that now includes AI. This particular podcast is one of the first that we're doing in video format. We also have a audio format that is every 2 weeks and is up on all the the audio podcast sites. But we're excited to have with us today Dr. Harvey Castro. We did an actual podcast with him about 8 or 9 months ago. And since then, he has been very active. We follow him very closely. He's been traveling a lot and working on a lot of very good projects. But we wanted to bring him on this time and in this format to get an update on, first of all, Harvey, since we last talked to you, what have you been doing? And I know you did a couple of TED Talks since then. And then more importantly, what are the big projects that you're doing today before we get into our big Q&A?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's an honor to be here with you two guys. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy all the work that both of you guys are doing. So thank you. What I've been doing is I'm having fun. I literally did 3 TEDx talks all on AI and healthcare, and they're all different. The skin in one that I want to share real quick with you guys is, as a doctor, I'm only limited by my senses. And as I'm getting older, I can really appreciate my hearing. And so I came up with an idea saying, what if I could use AI to augment my 5 senses and be able to see and hear and touch and feel and taste all the things that I can't? Or maybe I can see it in a bigger horizon. So just to give you a little quick taste, this video feed that we're talking, I talk about the ability to diagnose pre-diabetes just with this feed. Or my voice, believe it or not, is another way to diagnose pre-diabetes, or to at least screen for it, because I'm detecting that abnormality. And so that's literally what I've been working on the last few months.
That's exciting. Now, I know you have been traveling a bit. What are some of the international projects, including this new one on space that you've been telling us about?
Yeah, I'm so excited. So I'm an advisor for Phantom Space, and they just got a patent to be the first data center in outer space. So, you know, the news with Trump putting in Abilene, this big billion-dollar data center in Abilene, Texas, and around the country we're doing this. Well, this company decided we're going to put this in outer space. So I'm really excited because I'm able to tell them, you know what, as an AI futurist in healthcare and AI, how do I see it? And how can we do this in space and leverage that technology so that you and I here on Earth can leverage AI even to another level with our phones. So it's really exciting stuff.
So give us an example of how this is going to work.
So obviously, one of the things, unfortunately, we're worried about different countries attacking our data centers. Maybe they blow up our data centers and now we can't use ChatGPT per se. But if we're able to put it in outer space, we have that extra layer of defense. I know Trump is talking about putting a global dome to defend our country. Well, the same idea. If you could put those data centers up in space, then it makes it, from a strategy, it makes it even harder to go up there. You'd literally have to have the ability to send a rocket to that satellite, but then you have all these other satellites that are doing redundancies, so it'd be kind of tough to do. So it's just really interesting. And so my job is literally, I'm having fun. Like, what do you think, Harvey? How can this leverage? What can we do in healthcare? What can we do in other industries using those data centers in space? So I'm like a little kid, because as a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. So at least I get a little bit of space action here.
Now, you also have done a little bit of work with the government of Singapore. What was that about?
Yeah, what I'm able to share is really interesting. So I just blessed. I was on stage, and luckily the Ministry of Health was in the audience. And when I came off the stage, they said to me, Harvey, if you could do the stuff that you said on stage, which I had never heard before, in our country, we would like you to advise us. So now I'm an advisor for the country. And what's really fun, I was just there in March. They are working on different things that I can't discuss, but one of them, just to give you from a high level thing that I can say, is they said they wanted to do a certain thing with doctors. And I said, give me a second. I put on my doctor hat and I said, don't do it that way. We need to do it XYZ because doctors will accept that. Then they were like, well, on the legislation piece, we'd like to do it a certain way. And I said, well, let me put my legislator hat. And I was a former CEO of multiple healthcare companies. And so this is the best way to do it. And then they're like, well, we want to use AI in a certain fashion. And I said, whoa, if you do it the way you're wanting to do it, you're going to cost so many money for the country that I can give you some ideas to really keep the costs really low. That way you have more money for something else. The other thing that was really exciting, and I get a little giddy about this, is and I know it's kind of sounds like Big Brotherish, but let me tell you the whole story. They have the genetic genome of every citizen. That's the first thing. The second is they have the retinal scan of every person. Now, when you put the two together, they're literally looking at how can we help our society. You see, in medicine, there's this thing called hypercholesterolemia, and all it is genetically, at age 20, my cholesterol could be just sky high to the point where I could have a heart attack in my early 20s. What they're doing is they're using that genetics, they're using the genome, the information they have from the eyes, and they're looking at which citizens have the highest risk and who should be screened sooner to be seen by a doctor sooner to start medication for that one disease, to give you an example. I thought, man, what a great way, because if that was my loved one and they were going to have a heart attack at 20, now I know the government is like proactively saying, okay, let's put this teenager now on medication because we don't want this to happen in 5 years. Blew my mind.
Yeah, it is a bit Big Brotherish, but in one sense, it makes a lot of sense. And sure, it could potentially prevent lives or keep lives, safer and healthier. All right. Before we get on to another thing, you wrote a book on, you've written a lot of books, actually, I should point out, and I would recommend folks you go to his site and look at some of the stuff that he's written and some of his speeches. But you wrote one particular book that always intrigued me, which was the first book on Apple Vision Pro and healthcare. And what has happened since that time? You know, the Apple Vision Pro is still by far the best optical headset, VR headset, from the standpoint of resolution and functions and capability. But it has not taken off as Apple had hoped. And the shift now is moving towards glasses. And now you and I've talked about this as well, is that even though I do think VR headsets are still going to be the primary way doctors work, especially when it comes to looking at x-rays and videos of and even in training. Since you wrote the book on the Vision Pro, and now we're starting to move towards things like the smart glasses. How do you see that evolving?
Yeah, so I grabbed my smart VR, and yes, it's heavy, it's a little clunky. My wife warned me that if I wear this in the street, she would divorce me, and so I'm not allowed to wear those in the street anymore, but I'm joking. And I agree. So why not convert to something like this? You know, there's pros and cons. This thing with the big battery pack, I can use it for hours and then change battery pack. This thing, after a while, especially if I'm using VR on this, it's going to take up a lot of energy and give me a shorter span. Obviously, this thing is kind of expensive, but the resolution's amazing. And so I don't know this, but I'm hoping to see that Apple shrinks this down on site and price, and that way this would be great. But let's talk about what's happening. This is the future. Being able to use this, I see, and I'm excited that at the fall we should have these with the augmented reality on here, little TV screen so I can see. And I think as a doctor, if I'm taking care of you, let me show you a couple quick examples. As an ER doctor, when seconds count, I cannot afford to call a translator, put the phone next to you and say, okay, start speaking and see what language you speak. And then the language line be like, I don't know what language that is. But if I could put this on and it could detect your language, and now I can give you my phone and say, here's the app, and you start talking to it. I hear you, I speak in English, and it translates it to your language on the app, and vice versa. Man, now when seconds count, it's huge. The other thing is 2 a.m, I'm tired. Let's pretend this is HIPAA compliant and secure. I'm looking at an EKG, I take a picture, then that picture analyzes what it saw, and it may catch certain diseases that are really tough to see. One that comes to mind is Wolff Parkinson White. There's these little subtleties that if you're tired or you're not paying attention, you miss, and you may be obviously, unfortunately, hurting that person. And so this is why I think this is so important, and I cannot wait to see these devices everywhere, especially in healthcare.
Now, Harvey, just out of curiosity on the smart glasses, Tim and I did a seminar, it was a seminar on this very topic, and we had a lot of interest. The transition or potential transition from the Apple Vision Pro smart glasses to this, what are some of the drawbacks as you see it?
Yeah. Number one is the battery pack. You know, this thing, it's going to only last so long. So if I'm really going to use this in a 12-hour shift in the emergency room, I would think I would need like 6 of these. And so a charging station where I'm taking them, grabbing another one and just continuing, because it's going to run out of power. That's the number one that comes to mind. I can't wait to see the display, to see how good it is, because depending on how good it is, it may allow me to do other things. I'm going to change glasses. These are another glasses, and it has a screen. And if I wanted to give a talk and I didn't want to memorize my talk, I could see it, and it's 20 feet in front of me, and it can scroll through my talk. I was in Germany with these, and I was in a seminar, and everything was in German. I don't speak German, but I was able to put these on, and in real time, I was able to read every single word that they were saying because it would translate it in English. And I thought, man, I could hang out at this conference all day. I'm not missing a beat. It was really cool. So I thought, man, when these Meta glasses get this technology, leveraging AI, oh my gosh, I really think sky's the limit. I can't wait. So I need you guys to hook me up with Meta so I can get in bed with those guys, or Apple, because I really want to play with these toys at the development stage.
In this context, next week at AWE, I'm doing a session on Thursday at 1 p.m. on smart glasses. And in fact, one of the lead people from Meta will be there, and I'll talk to her about you then.
Thank you.
But they are going to introduce the translation capabilities and more updated AI stuff. I think they're going to talk about it more at AWE, but I know they're going to be in the glasses that they're introducing, the new ones that are coming out this fall. And Barton and I actually had a discussion about this in one of our podcasts, because we actually believe the translation aspect of it is going to be one of the more, I think, radically important functions of at least smart glasses and earbuds, because it basically makes the planet smaller. I mean, you're going to be traveling various parts of the world, and now all of a sudden you can actually understand what's being said. And I think that's a game changer in many ways. But having it in the context of what you just mentioned in the emergency room is a fabulous example.
And I'm so happy you mentioned the earbuds, because I literally just posted that over the weekend. Apple supposedly is going to have the new one with HRV and different ways of monitoring through your ear. And I thought, just another way. Now I don't have to worry about my wearable. If this is out of pack, I could be having these on. And at the end of the day, it's all about being proactive. My last TED Talk talks about, let's be proactive in medicine instead of reactive. If you think about it, we normally see the doctor maybe once a year, or unfortunately, if we have an emergency, but why not see the doctor years before the diagnosis? Example, I said the pre-diabetes. If I could catch it early, man, I could put up people on medicine, treat it before they destroy their pancreas and need to be on insulin. Another example, and I won't go into too much, but being proactive. Unfortunately, my dad died of a heart attack, and there was no warning sign. And that's unfortunate. My mother, on the other hand, she's an ultrasound tech, and just by luck, she was scanning herself, teaching someone ultrasound, and she found cancer in her thyroid. And as a result, 30 years later, she's alive because she caught it early. And that's my point. Let's use these tools to be proactive, to catch my HRV, my heart rate, that my heart's in AFib, to help me have better health.
Hey, that's really exciting. That should be the name of your new book.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea.
All right, Harvey, I want to bring us back to something that Tim and I are passionate about, as is this podcast, and that's the whole area of VR and AR. And now one can't possibly talk about AR and VR without overlaying it with AI, which feeds the data that may be needed for the AR, VR. But can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in AR and VR in medical applications like surgery, or ones that you've been impressed with?
Yeah, there's two areas that I'm really fascinated with. One is mental, PTSD, being able to, let's say I'm scared of heights, and then being able to put these on me and then put me in an environment that I'm slowly going in higher heights, and then desensitizing me from the heights, and eventually be like, I am fine with it. I really think this is an amazing tool for that. The other one that, again, with mental, staying on that same breath, is I personally, when I get stressed out, I close my eyes and I'm pretending I'm at the beach, hearing the sound of the waves, the sun, and I really can lower my blood pressure, my heart rate, because I can check with my wearable. It's true. And I thought, man, I'm seeing all these companies now putting this there, where you want to go into that Zen, into that magic place, and you can put yourself in that virtual world. You can hear it. Gosh, and AI now exists where they can create smells as well. So now you can hear it, see it, smell it. And in fact, when I go to Disney, I love this one place, because when you're sitting, you can feel the chair moving under you, or like there's insects under you. And I thought, man, we're getting really close to being able to do things. So that's on the mental side. On the surgery side that you mentioned, I'm really excited about digital twins And let's just pretend, God forbid, I need to do surgery on Tim or on Barton. Let's just pretend you have some weird anatomy on the CAT scan that I'm like, ooh, when I do this part of the surgery, I really need to be careful. So now with VR, I can literally practice doing the surgery over and over and over until I got it right. Now I'm like, okay, now this tricky part, I got it. I don't even have to worry about it because I know I've seen it 100 times. And so that's one example. Going back to that digital twin, we've all heard the news about twins that are conjoined, and it takes, like 10 surgeons and it's multiple days to get them to be separate. But imagine being able to do each part, and each part kind of like in symphony. Every surgeon has a certain part and they can go through their part using this VR. And that just makes me excited. And then just because I don't want to call myself a futurist, but because I think I see things that will come, we won't need that human. And you're like, oh, Harvey, don't say that. Well, in the near future, there'll be certain procedures that the robot will be better than a human. Simple example. My hands are not that big, but if I'm doing a certain surgery and I can't get in there and the instruments and it's just physically, I can't do it. But if I can use AI with the robot to be able to do certain parts of the procedure, maybe it's not the 100% of it, but maybe there's certain parts that it's probably better for the computer or the robot to do. And so I really think that's going to be the next stage. That's going to be what we'll be talking about next year when we start having robots out. And that's what we'll be really focused on.
Excellent. Tim?
Yeah, there's another example that we talked about with you the last time, which I want to bring up here too, because you talked about the high resolution screens, TVs that used to be or that are in the operating chamber, and a doctor would be up looking at it. And I think one of the examples was from this doctor that was I believe it was in LA, Barton, if I remember, who used the Apple Vision Pro. And he said that the monitor that was up on the screen was something like $27,000 or $30,000 because of the high resolution. He said he was getting that, if not better resolution, in the Apple Vision Pro. And instead of looking up and at the material that was up there that he needed for the surgery, he had it right in front of him. Don't you think that also continues to be another new example of where this could revolutionize the surgical process?
Yeah, there's so many things. And I agree. I love that because you're right. If I'm hyper focused on my field right there and I'm having to turn my head and then go back and focus, there's that lag and there might be this, eyes adjusting. But if I could have it right there or even superimpose on what I'm doing and then guiding me, my gosh. I've seen some really fun videos where it's AI, VR on top of the human, and it kind of walks you through how they would be cutting and where to cut. And I thought, man, this is great, because I'm thinking if I was in my early years of training and I never had done it, now I can literally, it's kind of walking me through and giving me that muscle memory and walking me through exactly where to cut and where to insert. Amazing.
Let's stay on that training one just for a second, because we also talked about this the last time we were there, is the fact that that using VR for heart surgery training or cadavers, instead of having to go as cadavers now, it's even harder to get cadavers, but you're actually being able to do the surgery in virtual. And you brought that up, and maybe you can kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, you have an amazing memory. So thank you, Tim. Yeah, so my favorite phrase in medical school, and it's still to this day, is see one, do one, teach one. So let's apply it to what we just talked about. See one. So, hey, Harvey, we need you to do an appendectomy, and I see it. And then literally they put me into the next room and say, okay, Harvey, your turn. Now I'm doing it. And then next, they say, okay, Harvey, here's your colleague. Here's Bart next to you. Now you teach him how to do it. And the first time they did that to me, I thought this was crazy. I thought they were joking, to be honest. They're like, no, Harvey, this is med school. This is how it's done. Looking back, I'm thinking, oh, that's kind of scary, because I wouldn't want to be touched by someone that I'm their experiment. I'm their N of one. I want to do VR where I've practiced 100 times and I've done it. And now you are one, but I've actually have practiced. That muscle memory I said earlier is there. And so that I agree with you. This is the way to do it. So now, instead of when someone asks me, have you done this before? I could say, yes, I've done it virtually about 100 times.
So let me follow up with just one question. Tim, I want to be sensitive of our time as well. So let's talk about, so we did a session on VR, AR in surgery, a podcast session. We had invite all of our guests to listen to that. But this starts not when you become a doctor. This starts when you're in medical school, or for that matter, even possibly before. So,
Mhm.
I just want you to talk about the quality of the graduating medical class and what is so radically different about them, and how does that impact how we as patients will be treated in the future?
Ooh, that's a tough one. And I'll be blunt and I'll answer that one. I'm torn on this one. There's for surgeons, they're saying that kids that played video games throughout their life, they're actually better surgeons because they're good with their hands and robots and eye coordination. I'm biased when I say this, but I personally worry that the new medical students must be taught how to leverage AI and keep their skills. Let me give you an example. If I lose my muscle memory in a way, or I'm not really doing the procedure over and over, and I'm overly relying on this technology, I worry that some of the students won't know A, when the AI hallucinates, or B, they'll just lose that muscle memory I'm talking about because they just don't do it. And that's one. So pretend the electricity goes out or Wi-Fi is out and they can't do it. That's the one. So for me personally, I want to educate my medical students and say, hey guys, let's learn, but they don't have that clinical gestalt. That's the second part. I've been doing it for a while. I'm old, and I can tell if the AI is lying to me because I'm like, oh God, that's not true. It's hallucinating. But I'm worried about the newer generations coming up that they're so used to that they think that's the gold standard, that this is it, and they don't realize it's lying to them.
Excellent point.
It's also a scary point because I already know as a writer and researcher and one who's been doing this for 40 years. So when I see a technical spec or something that AI is brought on and I know it's wrong, or a historical point that I know is wrong, then it gives me pause on the accuracy of what's coming on with AI. And that happens to be a whole nother subject that we're doing some research on right now. But in medical, where this precision aspect there is important. And I also think that what you bring out on the muscle memory thing is a huge thing. I think that applies to everything in life, that the more you physically do it and embed it, in the motion and the action, as a part of the training process, the more effective it is long term. You don't forget that. Whereas if you're only learning it philosophically, or in this case, through a VR process, and not also doing it simultaneously or often, that training process is not as effective as it should be.
Mm.
All I can say is these are incredibly exciting times, and we're so grateful for your commitment to leveraging these technologies, leading the way, showing others the art of the possible. And I'm just want to wish you continued success in all that you're doing. And I feel so comfortable and happy that you could one day be my doctor.
Oh, that means a lot to me. Thank you.
And Harvey, keep us posted as you discover and get into new projects, because watching you now over a year and a half, we've been fascinated by the evolution even in the last 18 months and the progression that you've made, because we see when you do your speeches and when you post things. And in that context, I'd like to really recommend to our listeners is that you do go to his site and take a look at some of the material that he has there. Look at some of the videos, especially his TED Talks, which are excellent, and stay in touch with him that way, because he really is a leader in this context at the moment. And it's important to stay up to date, especially with guys like him who are, I think, leading for healthcare, VR and XR and AR in healthcare. With that, we thank you for joining us, and we look forward to our next time where we can be together. Thank you, Dr. Harvey Castro and Barton and everyone who's joined us. Goodbye.
I know.